Welcome to Dalefoot Farm, tucked into the eastern edge of the Lake District National Park. A small, traditional hill farm in a tenanted landscape of field and fell, where cattle, sheep and fell ponies still graze, but in a changing landscape of rewilding and cultural shift, as farms are cleared and replanting is progressed. Dalefoot has been farmed by Simon's family for 2 generations, with Simon actually being born here at the Dalefoot Farm. A traditional progressive, Simon's father understood the need to work with nature and made sure he passed that on to Simon. So it isn't unusual that Dalefoot has taken on diversification, but perhaps more unusual because it is composting. And of course, let's not forget the peatland restoration work carried out off-farm across the United Kingdom. But how did these 2 unusual activities come together? As a 3rd-generation upland hill farmer, Simon has been aware since being a little boy of the fragility of the small farm network in Cumbria. Ensuring a sustainable future for these culturally important farms is at the heart of Dalefoot. I also come from a Cumbrian rural and farming background, but took a different route to Dalefoot via an environmental science degree down in West Yorkshire. And it's this combination of cultural inheritance and the willingness to embrace innovation that lies at the heart of the success of Dalefoot Composts. The idea to use sheep's wool and bracken, and now with comfrey added too, to make compost isn't absolutely new. They've all been lauded as sources of nutrition, individually but not in combination, which is where we come in. Our thinking draws initially on the work of Lawrence Hills, who was a tireless promoter of organic or natural gardening practices and soil health, at a time when matters were headed down the chemical route. Lawrence himself was a devotee of Henry Doubleday, one of the original thinkers who led the evolution of the Soil Association. We're proud to be accredited by the Soil Association today ourselves, so you can see the relationship running parallel with the 20th and 21st century ideas regarding soil health. The first batches of compost we made were taken to Wharton Farmers Market, where they sold out straight away. These were the early days of the internet, but one of our ideas was to sell via mail order and to use a newsletter to introduce these strange new composts to people. We used recipes and a seasonal calendar and talked about what we were doing on the farm. It was hugely successful. People were really interested in what we were doing, and we set up a strong relationship between us, the customer, and what goes into the bag. Our customers are able to see bracken being harvested and wool being incorporated into the compost. It's fascinating, and they love to be able to feel these materials in each bag that arrives in their garden. As part of building strong relationships, we work with a number of growers who trial our compost each year and give us feedback. Some of our growers follow scientific methods, others are nurseries, and some are more bucket scientists. Think giant veg growers. Year after year, these important people help us build up a picture of what works best for our customers. The combination of growing expertise and ongoing feedback from these dedicated individuals helps us assure quality in our products. In fact, everything about the product says quality, from the water of the Lakeland Hills to the repeated turning of the windrows of compost and temperature testing, to the certified undipped wool and unsprayed bracken, which is fundamental to our Soil Association accreditation. And now we're adding comfrey, which, like bracken, is also a dynamic accumulator. It brings up trace elements and minerals via its long tap roots and redistributes them through the leaves of the plant that we harvest and add to the compost. Going back to our earlier hero, Lawrence Hills, he was mad for it. So much so he wrote a seminal work on the subject, Comfrey, Past, Present, Future. Dalefoot Composts have proved to the market that it is possible to produce a premium, peat-free product. From being a small operation selling at farmers markets, we're now stocked in over 190 garden centres, supermarkets, nurseries and farm shops across the country, and operate a busy UK-wide online business. Flowers from the farm and market gardeners, national trust houses and specialist nurseries, alpine snowdrop lilies, veg box schemes such as Eva's Organics, and specialist growing for Michelin-star restaurants, Long Clune, just to drop a name or two. Our compost is used in health and well-being gardening projects, community gardening, promoting grow your own, hospital gardens, Horatio's garden, and many rooftop gardens in London. As you might expect, we're using a lot more wool and bracken than before. As planned, we have a good, reliable supply of local Herdwick sheepwool and bracken. Think Cumbria, Yorkshire, Northumberland, Lancashire, Dartmoor, and now even Wales. The comfrey we're now adding to the compost is grown on the farm here at Dalefoot. We are planting up many hectares of land. We're already propagating the next group of plants. By operating locally, we're able to provide work for over 30 people, and we do this as a living wage employer. Where we live, it's so important to provide alternative jobs to the tourist industry, which take us back to the very start of Simon's wish to provide a sustainable future for hill farming in the Lake District. But many of you will be aware of our wider Dalefoot mission. We're also highly skilled contractors and consultants in peatland restoration. So what's so important about peat? Peatlands cover around 10% of the UK land area. They're places where people derive clean water and food and can act as buffers for environmental disasters such as flooding. They're also of global significance for biodiversity, with the majority of peatland species and habitats either rare, threatened or declining. Perhaps what most people don't realise is that peatlands are the world's largest terrestrial carbon stock, storing more than twice the carbon stored in all the world's forests. We as humans have only just started to appreciate the wide-ranging impacts and benefits of peatlands, and as a consequence the majority have been historically managed in a way that has left them in a very, very damaged state, with an estimated 80% of UK peatlands in some way affected. One of the most damaging impacts arises through the commercial peat extraction of our raised bogs to provide peat for gardening. The mechanised peat removal has a major ecological impact. Millions of cubic metres of peat are still sold for horticulture today, around 1/3 of which comes from UK peatlands. Remember, it is global climate change. We can't continue to export our environmental damage, particularly when peat use in the UK can readily be replaced by more sustainable alternatives. The UK peatland strategy identifies targets for the restoration of heavily degraded peatlands, recognising that initial recovery halts losses but also begins the recovery of biodiversity. Enough of the politics. How do we at Barker & Bland restore bogs? Essentially with two main processes. Restoring the hydrology. After all, a bog needs to be wet. We simply block drainage channels through the use of skilled operatives and a team of 9-ton excavators. Through the winter, this year we had to dig the diggers out of 6-foot drifts to bring them back to the areas where we could continue working. As well as addressing the hydrology, we revegetate the bare peat to A. stop further emissions of carbon, B. stop further loss of peat, and C. perhaps most importantly, ensure sphagnum species are reintroduced and thriving, to start building peat for the future and create a functioning bog. We've always sought to restore using the most sustainable methods we can, and to do all this at the landscape scale has required ingenuity and perseverance, many head scratchings and wakeful moments. But always one to rise to the challenge, we've now restored many thousands of hectares of degraded bog from the Cairngorms down to Dartmoor. While most of these sites we work on have national and international designations of significance, some actually achieve significance through our restoration work. For example, Bolton Fell Moss, over 200 hectares of bog cut by the removal of the top 8-metre layer of peat, bagged and sold to horticulture. We restored that bog and it is now a designated National Nature Reserve. We do continually evaluate and monitor our restoration techniques, and as part of that we invest in R&D, for example through internships with the University of Cumbria. We have co-funded a PhD studentship to look into the carbon costs and efficacy of peatland restoration techniques, and we are also now a double doctor organisation since Dr. Darrell Smith joined Dalefoot Composts. This is just a small snapshot of what we do here at Dalefoot Farm, and there's so much more to tell you.